I'm going to jump into it tonight. Hey, this is John Young here with the Disc Jockey News. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the contractor, the subcontractor, independent contractor, and employee thing. This is something that for our businesses that we need to know about a little bit, because this could end up costing us a ton of money in fines and issues and different problems and such. Or maybe we're paying subcontractors or independent contractors as employees and paying some additional fees that we really wouldn't need to do. So we're going to dig into that just a little bit tonight and look at the differences and why this is important for our businesses, and really kind of go into that. Now, for those who are wondering about where this came from, such as that a lot of multi-system DJ companies out there are running with subcontractors. They have staff. They have staff that are doing things on a consistent basis, and they treat them as subcontractors. At the end of the year, they give them a 1099 form, which is what the IRS requests you to give to people that you have paid over $600 in a calendar year. You give them a 1099, and they are like, woohoo, and then they're off they go, and they do their own taxes and things. Now, the problem is that sometimes we classify our staff, help, workers, what have you, wrongly, and there's consequences to that, and we're going to talk about those in tonight's show. So first off, what I want to do is I want to kind of talk about just to define what the employee is. And basically, an employee, if you go to the dictionary, very simple, is a person who's that is employed for wages or salary, especially non-executive level. Basically, it's someone that we're going to employ, and we're going to be paying them a wage or salary. And a part of that salary or wages is that it's a consistent amount that we're going to be paying them over time, as opposed to a one-time sum. A subcontractor or independent contractor is a person or business that carries out, who works for a company on a project as part of a project, they're not the whole thing typically, and they are paid a one-time fee, or they're paid a fee at the end of the event, which is not something that is typically not repetitive amount. So there's a little bit of differences and nuances into it. This was the dictionary version of it. Now we're going to get into the IRS's version, because when it comes down to it, who's in control of deciding between a subcontractor or independent contractor? I'm going to refer to it as subcontractor because that's what we typically talk about in the DJ industry. Who defines what's the difference between that and an employee? It's the IRS. Doesn't matter what I think, doesn't really matter what you think. It doesn't even really matter what the state of Minnesota, i.e. where I'm from, thinks. It's all about the IRS and what they think. So we're going to look at what they are defining as. Of course, why is this important to know? Why is the IRS so interested in this? Because they want to make sure that they're getting the income taxes that are being withheld properly, and that they wanted to make sure that we're paying Social Security and Medicare and unemployment taxes on the wages that we pay to our employees. If we're not going and paying our employees and paying those different things, that's a lot of income that may go under the table. So that's why it's really, the IRS is very important, or very interested in going and doing this thing. So let's talk about the tax rates a little bit, because if it's only a few pennies, they're not interested in. When it comes down to your self-employment tax, if I'm paying that out of my own pocket, generally that comes up to a 15.3% to the combined self-employment tax for the different the Social Security and different things that I pay. When it gets broken down between myself and an employer, that means that the employer has some responsibility and I have some responsibility. So Social Security is a total of 12.4%, and that's 6.2 for both the employer and for myself. And then FICA also, or your Medicare, that adds a little bit, and that's a 1.45 for both of us. And it's based, of course, on my salary or what I'm getting paid. And then there's a federal unemployment tax, which can be up to 6%, which could be a combination of state unemployment tax and federal, and it generally varies. If you're doing some things with the state, then there's, depending upon your state, you don't pay over 6% when it comes to this, but you may be paying some to the state and some to the federal to get to that 6%. So there's taxes that they want to collect. That's why they're wanting to make sure we do this and do this right. So we're going to figure out a little bit, which one are we? There's an easy way to do it, for lack of a better way to describe it, is we just go to the IRS, and we go to you can see the URL right there, irs.gov, and look for SS-8. That is a form that you can fill out, and then you can basically send it in. And the IRS will look at your situation, and if you are doing it for potential employees, they'll look at it and say yes or no. They'll give you a judgment. And then, of course, if you're a staff member, they will look at that and fill it out and give you a yes or a no if you have employees or whatever. This form is probably one of the most filled out forms on the IRS website when it comes to employment. It is also the most not sent in form. They can track how many are downloading it and how many people are sending it in. Very few people send it in. It's mainly used to help kind of figure out and work your way through it, because it's I think 6-page document, and it has different forms, and it's going to cover a lot of the things we're going to talk about in tonight's show about deciding if the people that I'm working with are my employees or my subcontractor. Now, for those who are thinking, oh, I'm a single op, I'm not doing anything with this. If you have got someone that you're working with on a regular basis as a roadie, as an example, or let's say you're a DJ and you have a photo booth and you're having the same people running your photo booth, or you are having somebody come in and set up your gear for you. There's a lot of little nuances in this situation which could lead you from having subcontractors to actually employees. So that's why we really need to be aware of this, because if one of those people becomes disgruntled, and they go and they fill in this form, send it in, and all of a sudden the IRS says, whoa, wait a second. You should have been this. They can really make a big stinky mess for you. So you got to make sure that you are doing it and doing it right. So let's take a look at which one we are first in this. If we're going to look at the IRS guidelines for an employee, there's 3 big areas in which they say that you can decide if you are. They decide as they look at this if you are an employee, or if you have employees, or if you have staff. They talk about 3 different types of control. There's the behavioral control. Basically, a worker, an employee of mine, I can dictate how they're to do things, tell them how I want them to do. I want you to announce the first dance this way. I want you to announce the dollar dance this way. I want you to show up and do this, that, and the other thing. And I want you to do it my way. That's a behavioral control, and that would make who I'm working with an employee when I'm going to that level of control. And we'll get into that a little bit more here as we go along. Then there's a financial control. Basically, that I am the one who's going to be paying them for their services, paying them by the hour, paying them by this show, or paying them by this. And I'm doing this this on a regular basis for the work that they're doing. The big part of this that it continues on, and it really gets into a long thing. The big part of the financial control is that if the person that's working for me doesn't have the ability to make more money or lose money, specifically the lose money part of it, that if I'm the one who's getting all the responsibility with the lose or make money, that means that they're probably employees. Subcontractors sometimes can take an event and they can lose money. Sometimes they will make money. That's one of the parts of the test on that when it comes to the financial control. And then the relationship depends on how we've been working together. And we're going to dig into more of the relationship side of it. Do we have an agreement that they are a subcontractor? Do we have an agreement that they're an employee? And they're going to look at that and how they represent our company. When they're out working, are they doing shows as DJ John Young Entertainment, or are they out there doing shows as Bill's DJ company, instead of under my banner? That relationship and all those things put together really start to make it so that they move from a subcontractor type of situation to an employee. So let's continue on. Let's look at the behavioral controls a little bit. I want to dig into those because it's kind of an interesting area. So when we have behavioral control over staff, so they become an employee. When we can tell them when and where to do the work, we tell them what kind of tools, or we provide them with the tools and equipment to use. That's a big part of it. When we are dictating that you have to have at least this level of system, or you have to use my system, we're starting to cross into that line of employees. If we are kind of, okay, you can only hire someone to help you, this type of person to help you, or you can't hire if we're dictating their staff or assistants for their events, that's moving us into that employee. Service and supplies, where they must do their prefer. And then if we, are saying that, okay, it's got to be specifically you doing it, basically that we have the ability to control the outcome of what's going on. Instead of just turning it over to them and saying, here, go do this, that we're saying, okay, it's got to be you on the microphone. It's got to be her on the decks. It's got to be him over here doing this thing. And all you guys come together and you're going to put on a show. When we start taking that level, we become the employer to all of these people because of the behavioral control. Let's continue on to looking at more with the behavioral control. One of the sure signs that you have behavioral control over people is if you have some sort of maybe not even a super formal training program, but if you have a training program and your people have gone through that training program, whether it's a one night a week or one night, or if you've gone through a series like Mike Walter has, where he has, multiple 20, 30, however many nights he has. If you have a training program and you can go, your employees, past people working for you, can go and show and say, hey, look, here's their training manual that they have right here. That's going to hang you right there. As soon as you have a training manual and you're training them to do it your way, that's the behavioral control part right there. They've triggered it, and now you do have an employee. As continuing on, independent contractors, really the difference between it is I don't have a training program and they're going to do it their own way and how they want to make their announcements and different things with that. So let's go to the financial control and dig into that one a little bit. The employer, if I'm the right to control all aspects of the business, that means that I'm controlling the income, I'm controlling what I pay them, I'm controlling the potential for loss or gain. That means that they're probably employees. And talking about if there's business expenses and unreimbursed and reimbursed is a big part of this, it's in there, but yet it's circled. This is the IRS for you. It talks a lot about it and it makes it sound like it's one way, and then all of a sudden they do a 180 and it's not the other way. The biggest part is where's my last one? The last one right there, the extent in which the worker can realize a profit or a loss. If the worker isn't going to realize the potential for a loss, or the only their profit is going to be this fixed amount unless they get tipped, that really is starting to tell the IRS that it is indeed an employee. So you've got to really, really be careful when it comes to that side of it. Let's look at the relationship side. Now, this is a little bit different than the other two, because behavioral is probably our biggest one that's going to trip us up. If we have, there could be a written contract that's going to specify that we're subcontractors. That may or may not stand, most likely won't, but it is something that you'll see later that there is kind of a loophole. If there's benefits in insurance or time off or vacation or whatever, if there's any kind of benefits, as soon as you enter the world of benefits, you've got an employee. If they're with you, they've been with you for 5 years doing shows for you every weekend or every other weekend for 5 years, that permanency makes them an employee. It's just the way it is. And then, of course, the amount of work that they do and how they're doing that work and are putting it together, the things that, these are all aspects of that doing the business under my flag and being part of that and a consistency. These things all come together in that relationship that we've had, because now they're working as John Young weddings instead of their own. That all becomes part of that. They cultivate the fact areas where they can go and they can find these facts and get the findings, we'll call it, for being able to spank a person or to say, yes, you are doing it correctly. So there's the three different ways. And of the three, of course, the one that's going to catch us the most is going to be our very first there. And let's see, I lost my notes here on this. It says the behavioral one, of course, and the financial are probably the two going the strongest in that. And we'll bounce back to those in a little bit. The question becomes is how do they catch us if we're not doing it right? And of course, the IRS is interested in this. So if people fill out that SS8 form, which you can see the link right. Yeah, right there. The SS8 form is the one we talked about earlier, where it kind of will help you decide if you've got employees or subcontractors. Once the employees are upset with you, or the past people are upset with you, they can go and they fill in form 8919. That's the one that basically says, hey, they're screwing me over, and now I want you to come and slap them. And guess what the IRS does? They are very, very quick to come down and slap a person. So that's definitely part of the deal. But there is a catch to this. We go through and we read through the information. We go through the forms and such, and we're like, okay, I'm pretty sure these are all the employees. Am I host? Now there's this thing called a section 530 business relief on federal taxes little document. And there are ways within this little section 530 to be able to get out of the taxes or not to continue as you are. There's three different areas to this, and you have to basically be showing all three of them in a positive manner. And let me go through the three areas and I'll explain what it means to be going through those. The first part is you need to have a reporting consistency with the people you're working with. You've got to, if you've been reporting, let's say I have 10 people on staff and I've been reporting for the last 10 years that these 10 people have all been subcontractors, and I've been paying the taxes and doing all of my things in that line as subcontractors and doing it to the best of my abilities and in good faith. That potentially is one of the steps in this Section 530. The second part of it is I need to be treating all of the people that I'm working with the same. I can't be treating all 10 of them the same and have some be employees and some be subcontractors. All 10 of them would have to be treated the same as subcontractors. If I did the first one and I've been doing it for 10 years and I do the second one where I've been treating them all the same, I've got 2 ticks out of the 3. The third one, which is an interesting one, is that you can show that similar businesses in the industry operate this way. So if I could show that there were 10 different DJ companies in my market or around in Minnesota that are larger and they all operate the exact same way, all of a sudden a good employment attorney is going to be able to take these and say, yes, this business qualifies for the Section 530, and they're not going to have to go pay those back taxes, because that's one of the big problems is where did my okay, wait a second. Oh, I had all my penalties and fees. Where did those all go? Oh, that's a bummer. I don't know where I wonder if some of my slides got lost here. That's kind of disappointing. Yeah, in my slides, I was talking about, which are we? Yep, I don't know where, somehow I lost my, here's the catch, the 530, yeah. And then we're going to my next one. I don't know where so let's talk a little bit about some of the penalties that can happen in Minnesota. Well, let me finish, and if I don't have it, then we'll come back to that. Let's jump to workman's comp, because that's not talked about in here, because this is an area that the IRS really doesn't care about, but it is an expensive thing for a lot of us in the area. Workman's comp insurance, basically something that varies from state to state. Not every state requires it. 49 do, one does not. Workman's comp insurance is something that I have to have for my employees. So if something happens and they get hurt, that will basically take care of them and such to get them healed up and get them better. This is something that businesses have to have. And there have been some recent legal discussions about this, specifically in Florida recently, where a judge had gone and found that workman's comp insurance is paying back so little right now that he is opened it up so that people could go and now back to suing the business directly. It used to be that when you would have the workman's comp insurance, that if somebody got hurt on the job, they couldn't come back and sue you unless there was gross negligence. Now he's opened the door for that to come back. So you may see some things change on this. But workman's comp is for the employees, and it can range in the United States basically anywhere from 75 cents per $100 that you pay the employee up to about $3, just short of $3, and that's up in Alaska. It's very depending upon the type of job. There's going to be much higher if you're doing a dangerous job. If you're doing something where you're going to, paper cuts the worst you're going to get, it will be lower. It can vary. Surprisingly, when we looked at this with the newspaper, it was much higher than I would have expected. I assumed we'd be at one of the lowest, but we're not as newspaper, which was really weird. The fine for this, in Minnesota, I just looked at Minnesota because that's where I'm from and that's where my attorney friend's from. The fine for not having workman's comp can be $1,000 a week per employee during that time when they're not insured. So this could really get, and that's up to $1,000 a week, but I mean, it could jump up really, really quite quick. Getting back to the insurance side of it, yeah, I don't have that. Getting back to all of the taxes side of it, if you are caught with that and you haven't paid back taxes, there's penalties and there's fines, and then you have to pay the taxes, and you have to pay both your side and the employee's side, because they can't go back and take the money from the employee and you can't withhold it. So there are some definite things with that, and it's probably more the fines that are there for the interest that is accrued and all these different little aspects of it, and just the hassle, because as soon as you have this employee subcontractor thing, you now have to hire an attorney to be able to represent you. And that's going to take a lot of time and a lot of money and different things such as that. So to recap our little thing, there is this really cool document out there. If you go type into Google, the IRS 20-factor test, that's going to give you one of the documents that has been produced by the IRS, and it's being shared by a lot of different companies, that talks about these 20 different factors. You can go down that list, and we've talked about a couple of the factors in the show tonight, but there's really 3 top criteria to these factors. And the first one is basically the idea, if you're giving instructions to the workers and telling them how to do their job, that's something that's really going to look at. That's the behavioral side of it. If you're going to be doing something and telling them how to do their job, training them on how to do their job, because job training is the next part of it, those are big flags that you have employees over subcontractors. And then the last one that they look at is basically, this is the hierarchy of the first 3. And if you can pass these 3, you might have a good chance. But if you can't pass these 3, you don't have a chance of having subcontractors. The last one is the worker's ability to make a profit or suffer a loss. So if I'm insulating them from any potential loss, i.e. a bounce check situation, if the check bounces and I'm still paying them, or if the gear breaks and it's my gear, they're not potentially suffering a loss. Most likely they're my employees. So let's look at the photo booth side of this. From the photo booth side, I own the photo booth. I'm hiring someone to come out, and I'm going to throw them $100 to do that. Yeah, that's probably going to be fine. But if I have that same person with me time and time again, all of a sudden they've moved in because I've had to teach them how to run the photo booth. I've had to have them, teach the software and things. And then maybe I have a specific way I want them to, welcome people as they come up to the booth, and a certain way to say, okay, now I want you to put the pictures in here and put them in here, and how to cut and all these. I have trained them. I've shown them how I want it done. I've encouraged them to say and be and smile and do all these different things. So I've had instruction for the workers. I've had training for them. And of course, if that photo booth, somebody goes, crashes through that at the beginning of the night or at the end of the night, whenever, they're not going to lose the money. I would be the one losing the money. Most of our photo booth people, you've got employees out there, and that's going to be something you really got to think about and look at, because as soon as one of them gets hurt on the job, if they get hurt on the job, they're going to come after their insurance company will most likely come after you and say, hey, they were working for you. You didn't have workman's comp. Well, and now you've started down that road. So it's really, really kind of an important thing to understand where you are in this situation. Yes, you might be able to hire a good employment attorney who's going to be able to go back and get you that Section 530 if you have problems, but maybe not. So anyway, so that's our show for tonight. I just wanted to give you guys a quick little rundown, because I've had people asking about this one quite often, about what's the difference between employee or subcontractor. Those 3 little litmus tests at the end are the things I would definitely share with people when they're talking about it, and say, hey, if I can dictate what they're doing, if I'm training them, if I own the equipment, then they're pretty much not. The times where in the DJ world, the times where they would be subcontractors or independent contractors is that if Howie's in my market and I've got a show, and it's like, Howie, can you go cover this wedding for me? And he's, sure, John. And it's like, here, Howie, go. And I send him a contract and a paperwork. Howie goes out there and he's like, hey, this is Howie, and I'm going to be covering, John's not available tonight, and I'm going to be here to do the show, and we're going to have a great time, everybody. Let's do it. And he goes and does his show, or his style of show. He might maybe try to do some things in the way I do because of my different notes and such a little bit, knowing that I didn't, maybe he does a dollar dance every time and I don't do dollar dances. He'd probably go and honor that, and that wouldn't make him an employee of mine. But if I would go through and give Howie the word for word, okay, you're going to do this, and this is how I do my introductions, and let's train and practice. And then I had Howie doing shows for me, 3 times a month. That's going to start to push him towards the employee side of it. So you've got to really be aware of that. And also getting to the part with the people you're working with, if they have a business, let's say Howie's got his own DJ business, and Howie books shows and for other people in other places, or he's booking his own shows, that's a really good part that he's going to be a subcontractor, because he's got his own business and he's running his own business. He has his own gear. He's taking that. He's got all those risks and things. Then he's probably not an employee of mine, because he is out there booking shows and doing things otherwise. So anyway, that's our show for tonight. And with this, Dan and I will be back here in about a half an hour with talking weddings tonight, and kind of giving you our midsummer update on weddings. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you in about a half hour. Bye-bye.